Power down the vehicle under safety. Use 2 flathead screwdriver at 8 o'clock and 4 o'clock of the steering wheel to pop out the airbag. Use this provided clip to remove the yellow wire harness and the burgundy harness. Now use a 10mm bolt socket to unmount the actual steering wheel itself. You want to break the bolt first and then hand untighten it. Wiggle the wheel out and it slides right out of the actual socket. You will be removing these screws to remove the actual harness and compartment internal from the OEM wheel to the actual Hansshow yoke steering wheel. There's also screws in the back. You want to unscrew these 4 screws in the back as well as the actual internal components. Once you remove this, there's a VU shape underneath on the bottom of the steering wheel. You want to pop that cover open and remove those screws as well. Once all the screws are removed, you will go back to the front of the steering wheel and pull out the back cover of the actual wheel itself. Now you disconnect the harness of the OEM steering wheel and remove the scroll wheel with the 4 screws on each corner there. Once you remove these, you will go ahead and loosen the actual harness by removing the clips, and then there's another clip behind the actual steering wheel. Remove that cover case and you will be removing the remaining components of the airbag. So the airbag will be transferred over. You want to remove the bolts in the back, pull the cover out, be careful, and then pull the actual airbag harness itself with the cover casing. So you want to pry this slightly open to be able to remove the actual OEM airbag. This will be transferred over if you decide to actually get a different cover. So once you got the cover in place, go ahead and put the harness and the actual internal components, including the scroll wheel, onto the yoke steering wheel. You want to use the same screw to tighten up the actual housing case in the back of the actual yoke. Once you have all the screws tightened up, go ahead and tighten up the remainder cover. And then once you have both sides, go ahead and run the wires along the crease. And there's a socket in the right side and left side for you to run the actual wires through to be able to have it flush finish. This is very critical to be able to actually put the actual cover back on. So work slowly around the corners with the wires. Make sure that you use every corner and every inch of space to ensure that you don't pinch any of these wires when you're putting back the cover. Once you have the wire lined up, go ahead and place it in those small edges and creases to ensure a tight fit. So make sure that you use every bit and corner of that before you actually put the actual cover in the back on. And once you have the cover back on, go ahead and use the screw to tighten up the back. And once you have the back screws on, hand tighten it, don't over torque it, or else you'll be stripping some of these plastic casing. And you can use a wrench to be able to help you with that, and then work your way towards the bottom of the back of the steering wheel. Put the screws back on and the cover. Once those are completed, now start putting in the internal components and the harness that you removed earlier from the OEM steering wheel, and making sure all the casing for the airbag and the housing are in place. So these screws are from the original wheel, and we're just removing it from the original wheel over to the Hansshow yoke. So you can see there, once everything is in place, you are ready to put this back on the actual steering wheel itself. Make sure all the wires are tucked away, slide it back on, put the actual wires plug back in, the burgundy first, and then the airbag later. Hand tighten until you torque the actual 10mm bolt back on. You use the original. And this is the OEM airbag being put on to the airbag cover from Hansshow. And once you put that airbag over, and you want to make sure it's a snug fit before you actually put this device back onto the airbag, and everything goes on as if you remove it and put it back together. So once you put this back casing on, go ahead and make sure that it's snug onto the clips around all edges before you put the screw back on. So go ahead, tighten up all the screws, and then you will either use a screwdriver or a socket to actually torque these back on. Don't over tighten it, but tighten these nuts back on accordingly to where you feel tension, then go ahead and stop. And again, just check all the nuts and bolts and screws. Everything should be tight on there. And once you're done, go ahead and plug that yellow wire back on, push the airbag in. You might actually accidentally push on the horn, but that's okay. And that is it with the installation. All the squirrel wheel switches work as the original because you transfer the original over to the Yoke steering wheel from Hansshow. If you're interested in this product, the link is in the description of this video. Thanks for watching. Catch you all next time.